Hello there, and welcome to this week's edition of Creative Critique. Now, the newly released theatrical film that I've been to see this week is the newest film from director Duncan Jones, and the film is, of course, Warcraft. Warcraft, obviously, a film based on the game of the game of the same name. Has quite a significant fan base online, so it's not a surprise that this product has effectively been given the movie treatment, if you will. It has taken a fair old while, though, it must be said. It's been in production for at least 10 years, I believe, before properly getting off the ground about 5 or so years ago. Duncan Jones, of course, has directed the likes of Moon and Source Code previously, so she's got some good genre fare behind him. So what was the end product of this film, and what did I think of it? Well, Warcraft, the beginning, to give it its full name if you want to. They clearly have high hopes for this by giving it that little pseudonym afterwards, a little name afterwards. Where to begin? I think it is fair to say that the majority of the uninitiated to Warcraft probably didn't expect too much from the film, given mainly what we'd seen in the trailer and in general just what the kind of quality we've been given previously of game to film adaptations and what they presented us with in the past. And unfortunately, I have to report the despair has to go on. I was very quickly going to the plot. That's obviously my initial reaction first of all. But the initial plot focuses on, of course, if you're not, like I say, initiated to the game itself, focuses on the war of two different lots of races, principally the race of man and principally the race of orc. The orcs effectively have formed a gate on their side of the world where they are now trying to get to the human side of the world. It's not exactly the same world. They may be, I don't know the exact specifics of where each other are in place of the universe, but they are not in the same vicinity. Effectively, the orcs want to form, to go to a new land, and this is where the humans is, and therefore want to take the land off them. Obviously, the humans are not too pleased about this, and effectively a battle of wits and battle of war, of course, is crafted, if you want to. That's the general premise, and it sounds pretty like standard fantasy fare, doesn't it? So, now we are getting to the point now where we're hoping one film game adaptation can prove all the critics wrong. But like I said, the search is still going to go on. And the main problem I had with it is that I wasn't uninitiated in respect to the game itself. Therefore, I had no knowledge of it other than what has appeared in popular culture. So really not too much for me, myself. And the film certainly did not help with that. Effectively, the new audience. Lots of places are named, lots of characters. There's lots of characters to remember, and you've really, very quickly got to get on board with their motivations and goals. And the film, like I said, generally just didn't convey them to me well enough. I had a little bit of a problem with the effects as well, which is surprising because a lot of people have actually. One of the best things about it, people are going to go and say the effects was quite good and the motion capture and so on and so forth. But I felt they were merely, in respect to certain sequences or certain scenes or things like that, I felt there were certain times it felt like it was merely just a more polished up game cutscene, and I couldn't get my mindset out of that. Part of that is my problem. I understand that, but I still think there's evidence there to form a basis on. Also, they didn't quite know how to present this vibrant world to us, I don't think. It ends up kind of being a mishmash of neither completely convincing CGI nor top-notch practical effects, because there is some in there, but it's pretty much on one character. Effectively, the orcs are all motion captured, and there's a brief bit where the dwarf who looks completely the same as well. The men are obviously the men. And there's one individual played by Paula Patton who is, well, we don't really know her origins. She's possibly part orc, possibly part human. We don't quite know. Whereas she is effectively in full-on makeup, just with little tweaks here and there regarding her facial sort of stuff. but that was a very small example of any kind of practical effect. And surely by now, but for people doing this sort of thing, surely we've learned by now that the best combination of using effects is using both of them and knowing where to use them at the right moments, practical and CGI. Because CGI can be astounding and can be wonderful, but if you are completely surrounded by it and you genuinely feel like this isn't real, you lose a part of what makes you engrossed in the film. And the film did not do that well for me at all. It made me not care from that point of view. So that's briefly on the effects, and I will go into the dialogue. Now, to say that the dialogue is generic would be to be kind. Now, don't get me wrong, it's not terribly written. Jupiter ascending. It's just that we've heard its kind before, so therefore you give out unintentional groans as you hear it. Talking of groans, the worst offence a film can do, a film particularly as big as this and effects laden as this, and big on scale, can do to you and do to an audience is bore them. And I had moments where I was exactly that. Now, this is really unfortunate for the director Duncan Jones, I think. Or is it? Because he's also a credited writer. Now, I understand he's tried to, when he came onto the project, it was pretty much what the game was, and therefore that was not going to work. So he tried to introduce a story into the film, a more interesting character study, particularly on the orc side, and the humans are quite standard fare. Although there was a wizard who's quite reasonably effective in terms of his screen presence, and particularly the effect of his magic, actually. That was very well done. Yep, there you go. That's one good thing there. Good effects on the magic for the wizard. As I said, it's kind of unfortunate, but or is it because he's a credited writer? Because his previous films have been greatly entertaining, principally Moon and Source Code, like I've said, and they are complicated, intricate science fiction stories. So for something of this film to be so generic was quite surprising for me. He clearly, a lot has been going on in the world of Duncan Jones, obviously in the last few years or so. So it's not been the greatest platform for him in the workplace. But it is disappointing. There's no doubt about that. There were scenes as well that seemed weirdly edited. Particularly in one instance, as if they suddenly remembered they were a lower certificate or rating. And they went, wait a minute, we better draw this in a bit or draw this back a bit. The film did pick up a bit towards the final third of it. It got a bit more quicker, and the action was a bit more interesting. Like I said, the actual magic effects were actually pretty good. But the problem is, like I said, I was bored in parts of it. I was like, oh, I've heard this before, into the dialogue, and I was not impressed particularly by the effects. This is not an overlong film particularly, it's 2 hours, so it's not overstaying its welcome, so therefore that's even worse, isn't it? Because the cast in place as well, I've briefly mentioned Paula Patton there, who plays a possibly human/orc hybrid, maybe, we don't know. Travis Fimmel effectively plays the principal, the main lead human, who is effectively he's a prince in this film, but a great warrior as well. There's a king played by Dominic Cooper, who kind of plays it in quite a blasé way. He's a bit too nice for a king. I know kings maybe being nice is one of the key components, but as things are about to go through, plot-wise in this film, suddenly you think, why is this man king? He's not been able to get anybody together whatsoever. Considering apparently this world has been embroiled in peace for a significant amount of time, he somehow isn't able to draw people, leaders and warriors from the world to his aid in order to stop this horde. You're not a very good king, Dominic Cooper, are you? Although an instance regarding the finale is interesting regarding his character. Ben Foster plays the wizard as well, and he's okay. He's pretty alright and interesting. He's probably the most interesting character in there. Toby Kebbell is effectively the lead motion captured orc in the film, and it's decent enough. It's just not engrossing enough story-wise, and there's so many tropes and cliches of the genre, and in particular to the fantasy genre. Yeah, there we go. I just went. It really does sound like I thought it was an utter disaster, doesn't it? I did find humour in it, but it was in unintentional places. Shiny-eyed people, anybody? But I do suppose it still makes it entertaining, if for the wrong reasons. But we've got to be honest here, though. It's just damn mediocre at best, and I have read online. My God, the fans have clearly made their voices heard, and ridiculously so. The fans online stating that it's as good as something like Lord of the Rings in the fantasy stakes really do need to have a reality check. Really? Are you watching the same film I was? And chance any sane person. Never mind. Oh, it's an action flick. Oh, never mind. It's a fantasy. It's a dumb action flick. Yes, it was, but it was not entertaining enough for me and what it was trying to do. I think I'll leave it there because I'm sure I'll feel their wrath. So there we go, Warcraft. What are the fanboys on, to be honest, in terms of... And so they've really got under my skin with this because... Yeah, I can't understand the fan reaction of how good it is. Because for me, if I love something, I personally am a big fan of the Alien films. Now, for me to say that every single Alien film is a 5-star film is pretty much rubbish, isn't it? It's rubbish. The first two are great films. The third one I make excuses for because I can find qualities about it, and the fourth one is just kind of unforgivable, isn't it? But I will make small defences about it, but I will always accept the flaws and the problems with it. The fans of the game Warcraft have to accept the problems with this film and in how it works as a film. Never mind whether it's got that right from the game. It's got that right from the game. This is a film. That is not the point. It's a different medium. It's like me going, if a film turned into a game and a game didn't represent the best things of the films, they're completely different mediums. It does not apply to them. So, fanboys need a reality check on this film. Yeah, it's disappointing, and I was a little bit, yeah, it's just, there we go. Warcraft, the beginning, was my theatrically released film of the week. Now, in making this a fantasy special, I've gone kind of not... I could have done something like Lord of the Rings in terms of scale, but the difference in quality is too great to discuss. So I'm taking the easy road on this one, and I'm going for actually a more family-orientated fantasy film, and that film is 1995's Jumanji, directed by Joe Johnston. Joe Johnston is quite renowned for, obviously, his effects-driven films, as Wikipedia says, but that is represented in his filmography, effectively, with things like his first feature film directed by was Honey, I Shrunk the Kids. He's made, obviously, films like Jurassic Park 3, he's made Captain America, The First Avenger, so he's got quite a fantasy and science fiction-orientated CV. Mainly fantasy, actually, really, isn't he, there? So... he's the sort of right person to bring into this sort of film. It's a film, Jumanji, that effectively how it starts off. A board game is found by a young lad. I've forgotten his name. He starts playing this game with a girl in his local neighborhood. This is in 1960s America, and what happens as they're playing this game is effectively as they're rolling the dice. Effectively, little riddles come out of this game, and suddenly creatures and events start occurring. Effectively, he gets then sucked into this game, and is stuck in there for 20 odd years. 20 or 30 odd years. It's 30 years, isn't it? I think it's about 30 years. The game is then refound in 1990s by principally another pair of kids. One of them who is a very young Kirsten Dunst, and they start playing this game also, and effectively managed to release an individual out of the game who is played by Robin Williams, who is obviously the kid who played it in the 1960s. And effectively what proceeds from then on is them playing the game in order to finish it and get rid of all the craziness and events going on. But what fun the film is. And now, there's no doubt about the film that it is it has problems. There's no doubt about that. The difference between something like this and Warcraft in particular, whereas Warcraft was trying to take itself a bit more seriously, Jumanji doesn't. It's certainly a completely bang in the middle of those sort of 80s Spielberg produced or even directed films, of that people coming together sort of thing, and also that the 1980s, early 90s as well, Joe Dante films like Gremlins, whereas Anarchy, slightly more tailored to more a teen audience, most certainly, but there's certainly plenty of things there for families to watch. And the reason why you can get away with it is because it's bloody damn fun. The stuff that there's no doubt. Also, like I say, this is a film that is from my childhood, so I'm going to have a biased opinion of it, slightly biased opinion of it. But I laugh out loud every time, in particular moments throughout the film. Some of the humour is great. I do really like Robin Williams' performance in the film. It encapsulates part of his humour, and he's just warm as a character. There's some really dark moments, in particular with instances of creatures attacking and things like that. I thought the practical effects, talking previously about the combination of CGI and practical effects, yes, the CGI effects have dated a bit in this film. It's principally used on the monkeys have dated, most certainly. In part, the stampedes have began the elephants and rhinos and so on and so forth. Zebra, whichever you want. But I actually still like the lion effects, because they were both used CGI and practical effects. And the best thing about this film is the combination. One of the best things about the film is the combination of the practical and CGI effects. More so the practical effects, no doubt. Like I say, there's some greatly used humour in the film. It's very warm, although, like I say, it's not afraid to go dark. Which makes it kind of, in my sort of world, this sort of perfect family-oriented film, because there's a bit of something for kind of everybody. Yes, Joe Johnston is quite... Some of the plot elements don't always work. Stuff you're like, oh, okay, that's clearly there for later on. It's not very subtle. Some of it is quite, particularly the opening scene where it's a pair of kids from I think it's the 17 or 1800s are burying a game, and it's like at night with lightning. And it's not very subtle at all, that sort of setting. But what is fabulous about it is I think it's just pure great fun. I don't know where more to go with it, because I just really do enjoy it. Yeah, it's just fun. It's certainly flawed. It's not going to change your world, but you're not going to regret having watched it. And I think it's a greatly entertaining film, Jumanji. And upon hearing originally that it was going to be remade, I've heard I was like, why don't you just remake my whole childhood, Sony? That was my initial reaction. Also, I was quite pleased to say some of the casting involved possibly in the film. Maybe Jack Black and Dwayne Johnson, who I quite enjoy as actors, who are quite fun to watch. So they could work. We'll see. But I still think this film is quite a classic sort of 90s film, a family film. I think it's great. So Jumanji is my classic fantasy film of this week, and Warcraft, The Beginning, was my theatrically released fantasy film of the week, making it a fantasy special. I thank you if you have for watching. I do hope you've enjoyed what I've had to say on these two films. If you have, please do subscribe to me, and I hope to see and speak to you again very, very soon. Thank you very much for watching, and goodbye.